Dear friends, this is episode number 41. We have completed section 151. Now we will go to section 152, 153 and 153A together. One 52, small section. Let us read. Amendment of judgment, decrees and orders. Clerical or arithmetical mistakes in judgments, decrees or orders, or errors arising therein from any accidental slip or omission may at any time be corrected by the court, either of its own motion or on the application of any of the parties. So what is sought to be corrected, amended? Clerical or arithmetical mistakes, or errors arising from any accidental slip or omission. In what? In judgments, decrees or orders. When can it be corrected? At any time. By the court. Is application required? Not necessarily. Either of its own motion or on the application of any of the parties. This is based on the principle that an act of court shall not prejudice a litigant. That is the spirit of this maxim. The courts have a duty to see that their records are true and represent a correct state of affairs. And along with this, you have to see Order 20, Rule 3 also. Let us see Order 20, Rule 3. Order 20, Rule 3. Order 20, Judgment and Decree. Judgment to be signed, transcript, shorthand. The judgment shall bear the date on which it is pronounced and shall be signed by the judge, and when once signed, shall not afterwards be altered or added to, save as provided by section 152 or on review. Once the judgment is signed by the judge, then that judgment shall not be altered or added to, except by the exercise of power under section 152 or the power of review. Then, Order 20, Rule 3 mandates that a judgment once signed cannot afterwards be altered except by resorting to 152 or by review. Order 20, Rule 6 is clear that a decree shall be drawn so as to agree with the judgment. That also you have to see. Decree shall be in conformity with the judgment. Now, the power under section 152 shall be, the decisions are uniform to the effect that it shall be, the power exercised shall be very liberally exercised whenever such amendment seems necessary to promote the cause of justice and to save the parties from the ordeals of a second round of litigation, only to correct mistakes. This is the principle. Now, if a judgment is a judgment and decree are passed, the matter was taken up in appeal. The appellate court disposes of the appeal, either confirming or reversing or altering, whatever it is, disposes it of on merits. It is thereafter that it was revealed that there is a clerical or arithmetical mistake in the judgment. Where should the applicant go, whether in the trial court or in the appellate court? The application shall be made before the appellate court. Why? The judgment of the trial court has merged in the judgment of the appellate court. So only thereafter the appellate court has the power. Or when an appeal is pending, it is the appellate court which has to correct it. But if the appeal is dismissed without granting admission under Rule 11 of Order 41, not admitted, dismissed in limine, or an SLP before the Supreme Court is dismissed, no leave was granted, then this principle of merger may not apply. Therefore, it is just the court below that has to correct it. If it is a second appeal before the High Court and the second appeal was dismissed in limine without entertaining it, without admitting it, and it was found that there is a clerical or arithmetical mistake in the judgment of the trial court, the application has to be made before the lower appellate court. Or if the High Court has disposed of the appeal on merits, then the High Court. That is the principle. You please see AER 1980 Kerala 76. KLT also 1980 KLT page 9. Kannan versus Narayani and others. Dismissal of SLP. Please note. 1997 2 KLT. 1997 2 KLT 145. Varadaraja Iyer versus Ammukutiyam. Sometimes it may happen that the judgment may contain all the relevant things, but the decree does not conform to the judgment, does not agree with the judgment. We have seen that under Order 20 Rule 6, the decree shall conform with the judgment. It shall be in agreement with the judgment. In such circumstances, when a decree drawn up by the trial court does not clearly specify the extent and manner of the relief qua the intention expressed in the judgment, then the party is entitled to the relief under Section 152. Please note AER 2003 Supreme Court 351. Lakshmi Ram Bhuyan Phuyan versus Hariprasad Bhuyan. Now, please also see AER 2003 Supreme Court 643, where the decree, the property which is the subject matter of the suit is not correctly identified and shown in the decree. AER 2003 Supreme Court 643. Pratibha Singh versus Shanti Devi Prasad. Now, a decree was granted granting interest with a higher rate of interest than the rate agreed to by the parties as per their agreement. A suit can be compromised, the parties come to a settlement, they agree to grant a decree with a specified rate of interest. But while drawing up the decree, higher rate of interest is shown. Then that can be corrected under section 152. 2000 volume 1 KLT 715. Sorry, George and others versus Federal Bank. Please also see 2011 2 KLT 149. 11 2 KLT 149. Now we go to 153, section 153. General power to amend, which says that the court may at any time and on such terms as to cost or otherwise as it thinks fit, amend any defect or error in any proceeding in a suit, and all necessary amendments shall be made for the purpose of determining the real question or issue raised by or depending on such proceeding. General power to amend. The prime object is what? To shorten the litigation, to avoid multiplicity of proceedings, and to see that mere technicality of proceedings shall not stand in the way of rendering justice. That is the object of this section. So the court has wide powers and it can be done at any time. Amend any defect or error in any proceeding in a suit. So sometimes the proceedings in the suit may be defective. That defect can be cured. If it is a defect, it may happen. Sometimes we are all human beings. Defects, errors and all those things may occur. Then I remember a case having been decided by me. I do not get the citation. That is this. I will give the facts. I am saying this from memory. A suit was filed showing the defendant, one of the defendants, as the son of so and so. Say for example, Krishnan Nair. The parties belong to, the plaintiffs are the children of Krishnan Nair. I'm sorry. I give an example. The children of Raman Nair. Let us take it. The plaintiffs and other defendants are the children of Raman Nair. One of the defendants is shown as the son of Krishnan Nair. Because the plaintiffs do not recognize this particular defendant, as the children of Raman Nair. If they are the children of Raman Nair, he is entitled to a share. But the plaintiffs do not recognize him as the son of Raman Nair. According to them, he is the son of Krishnan Nair. What is the contention of that particular defendant? Let us take it that he is the first defendant. His contention is that he is not the son of Raman Nair, he is not the son of Krishnan Nair, but he is the son of Raman Nair, and therefore he is entitled to a share. So the question to be decided in the suit, one of the questions to be decided in the suit is whether the first defendant is the son of Raman Nair. If so, he is entitled to a share. If he is not, he is not entitled to a share. So the cause title in the suit, it was shown as first defendant, shown as son of Krishnan Nair. A wakalat was filed, an advocate was engaged, a wakalat was filed. On the practical aspect of it, these wakalat forms are being filled up by advocate clerks. How it is filled up? Filled up as shown in the cause title in the plate. So what is shown in the cause title? First defendant so and so, son of Krishna Nair. His contention is that he is not the son of Krishna Nair, he is the son of Ram Nair. So this wakalat was filed. Nobody noticed that defect. A written statement was filed by the first defendant saying that he is the son of Ram Nair and therefore entitled to a share, and the allegation that he is the son of Krishna Nair is not correct. All those contentions have been raised. Everything is on record. Issues are raised. Case was taken up for trial. At that time, this wakalat came. Wakalat was pointed out by the plaintiff's side, where the first defendant signed the wakalat and engaged a lawyer, where he is described as the son of Krishna Nair, who filled up, first defendant's lawyer's clerk filled up, and who signed, first defendant signed. It is not the case of the plaintiff. It is some sort of an admission on the part of the defendant that he is the son of Krishna Nair. So this was relied on by the plaintiffs to put forward their case or to strengthen their case. This is a weakness for the first defendant. So he says that this was only a mistake. Mistake was committed by the advocate clerk and therefore please correct it. An application was made. In that case, I remember I had occasion to hold that correction can be effected. Power under section 153 can be exercised, and even if there is any doubt, section 151 can be exercised. I do not remember the citation nor the name of the parties. If I get it, I will certainly place it, or you can just search and find out. Under this you may get it. So this is the scheme of 151, 152, 153. Now let us see 153A also. Power to amend decree or order when appeal is summarily dismissed. This is an amendment in 1976, where an appellate court dismisses an appeal under Rule 11 of Order 41. That is without granting admission. Dismissed at the admission stage. The power of the court to amend under section 152. The decree or order appealed against may be exercised by the court which had passed the decree or the order in the first instance, notwithstanding that the dismissal of the appeal has the effect of confirming the decree or order, as the case may be passed by the court of the first instance. So it was not a decision on the merits of it. The appellate court decided it. How? Under Order 41, Rule 11. What is that? Did not entertain it. Dismissed it in limine. Not admitted. So there is no merger as such. In which case the application can be filed before the court below. That is, if it is a first appeal. That first appeal was dismissed in limine by the High Court. The subordinate court, which decided the suit, can exercise the power under section 152. On the other hand, if it is decided on the merits, the position would be the other way about. 80 KLT, page 9. Please see. So this is the scheme of these provisions. 151 I gave more stress because that is the power which is being exercised very often, every day. It's a day-to-day matter. And on practical side of it, every lawyer will make his application like this. Whatever it is, he will add 151 also. Order 9, Rule 9, Order 9, Rule 13, plus 151. Or Order 22, Rule 3, plus 151. Everything we will add 151, because whenever it is found that something is lacking, you can rely on 151. That is why that practice has developed. in very many parts of the state of Kerala. I do not know what is the position elsewhere in India. Now this is the scheme of it. Now we go to order 23. Order 22 we have already dealt with. Order 23. Now I am picking and choosing these topics because other topics were dealt with in the law university, in the classes. Therefore, what is left out, I am taking first. And thereafter, the request by some of the lawyers and some of the law students to take other topics also, I will consider, I will deal with it. But I will just first deal with those topics which are left to be touched by me in the novels. Order 23. Please take the CPC, Order 23. Withdrawal and adjustment of suits. Withdrawal and adjustment of suits. I file a suit. I can abandon the suit at any time. There are certain consequences. I can withdraw from the suit. Two types of withdrawal. One, withdrawal with permission of the court, and two, withdrawal without obtaining the permission of the court. The consequences are different. Then third category is compromise. Parties may arrive at a settlement or compromise. These are the three types of matters which are dealt with in Order 23. We will deal with it. Not very elaborately, but only to the extent it is relevant for the law students. Now, please read Rule 1. At any time after the institution of a suit, the plaintiff may, as against all or any of the defendants, abandon his suit or abandon a part of his claim. Suit can be abandoned. A part of the claim also can be abandoned. Provided that where the plaintiff is a minor or other person to whom the provisions contained in Rules 1 to 14 of Order 32 extend, neither the suit nor any part of the claim shall be abandoned without the leave of the court. What is it? Who can abandon a suit? Plaintiff can. He can abandon his suit or part of the claim. If the plaintiff is a minor can file a suit, no harm. A suit can be filed against the minor also, there is no harm. If the suit is filed by a minor, he must be represented by a person who is called his next friend, who has no interest adverse to that of the minor. The court must be satisfied. If one of the defendants is a minor or the sole defendant is a minor, suit can be filed against him, no harm. But he must be represented by a guardian ad litem, guardian for the purpose of the case. So whenever these expressions are being used, it cannot be used interchangeably by the lawyers or law students. whenever the plaintiff is a minor, we use the expression minor by next friend of the minor. Whenever the defendant is a minor, the person who represents him, who represents that minor, is called the guardian ad litem, guardian for the purpose of the case. So without a next friend, a minor cannot file a suit. As if he is a major, he cannot. Likewise, a suit cannot be filed against a minor without appointing a guardian for him. The decree will be null and void. No, decree will not be valid. A decree against a minor without appointing a guardian is null and void. And it can be raised whenever and wherever it is sought to be executed, and even collateral proceedings. That is a well settled position. So a minor and other disabled person who are covered by rules 1 to 14 of Order 32. Pleonatic also, all these types of categories of persons who are incapable of protecting their own interest come under Order 32. Provided that where the plaintiff is a minor or other person to whom the provisions contained in rules 1 to 14 of Order 32 extend, neither the suit nor any part of the claim shall be abandoned without the leave of the court. Permission of the court is required. To get permission, what should be done? Sub-rule 2. An application for leave under the proviso to sub-rule 1 shall be accompanied by an affidavit of the next friend. And also, if the minor or such other person is represented by a pleader, by a certificate of the pleader to the effect that the abandonment proposed is, in his opinion, for the benefit of the minor or such other person. Two requirements are there. Minor must be represented by an next friend. He shall file an affidavit stating what? Swearing what? That the abandonment proposed is for the benefit of the minor. He has to state how it is for the benefit of the minor. Court has to consider it. And also, if the minor is represented by a lawyer, the lawyer has got a responsibility. He cannot simply abandon the suit and say on the request of the next friend of the minor. He must issue a certificate to the effect that the proposed abandonment would be for the benefit of the minor. So these two things are mandatory, because the court has to protect. Court is the guardian of all minors and persons under disability. Court has to protect their interest. How to protect? The plaintiff alone can abandon his suit. Plaintiff is a minor. Minor can be represented. Minor can file a suit only by represented by a next friend. Next friend is the person who should have no interest adverse to that of the minor, and who is expected to protect the interest of the minor. He should not have any other interests other than protecting the interest of the minor. There may arise sometimes the minor's interests are affected. The next friend may be somebody, some relative or a friend, anybody. He may collude with the defendant, withdraw the suit. What will happen to the minor? After becoming a major, he realizes that such a fraud was committed. Then he has to file a suit to get rid of it. Instead of such frauds or duping or collusion takes place, such provisions are there to protect the interest of minors. Then there is a similar provision in Order 32 also. Similar provision in order 32 also. That is Rule 7 of Order 32. Agreement or compromise by next friend or guardian. No next friend or guardian of a suit shall, without the leave of the court expressly recorded in the proceeding, enter into an agreement or compromise on behalf of the minor with reference to the suit. Third category, which I said, that compromise, abandonment, withdrawal, compromise. These are the three things which are in Order 23. An application for leave under sub-rule 1, I am reading Rule 7 of Order 32, shall be accompanied by an affidavit of the next friend or guardian, and if the minor is represented by a pleader, a certificate, as we found in the proviso to Rule 1 of Order 23. Provided further that the opinion so expressed, whether in the affidavit or certificate, shall not preclude the court from examining whether the agreement or compromise is for the minor, benefit to the minor. Any such agreement or compromise entered into or without the leave of the court so recorded shall be voidable against all parties other than the minor. So, Order 32, Rule 7, which protects the interest of the minor plaintiff or minor defendant. Specific provision is there, Rule 7. And Order 23, when it comes to the question of abandonment of a suit by a minor, then the minor, what the minor should do on behalf of the minor, what should be done to get permission are stated. So, we will come to sub-rule 3 onwards in the next episode. Thank you very much.